Hello, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to our GG, that is Google Educators Group of Delhi NCR. Today is an exciting day and exciting session for us. And as you can see, two of us are here who both are maths teachers. We do not have the other two captains here, but they are still with us on YouTube and Facebook. And they are going to participate, even if they say, well, it's a math session, so you take over and they need not be here. They'll be equally participative because they've been hearing no end to the possibilities that the tool which we are going to showcase today has opened up for us. So before we bring up our special guest, I want to just ask Vibha. Vibha, first introduce yourself, and then we'll just want to know something special from you. Yeah.
Yes.
So
So, hello.
Vibha,
Thank
over
you,
to you.
Sangeeta ma'am. Hello, everyone. Namaste. I am Vibha, as ma'am said, and I am a middle school math teacher and super duper excited for this session today. For the ones who have joined us today, if I'm sure quite a few of our colleagues will be joining us today, and the tool which we're going to discuss today, the web tool, if I may say, very specific. It's something we have been using all the time, and it's been a major savior in the pandemic times. And I would say all thanks to Sangeeta ma'am, that's how I got to know about this. But it's amazing, and I am super excited. Although I'm a super regular user, I am very excited to learn what our special speaker has for us today. So I think we should not waste a lot of time, and we'll
Yeah,
get started very
absolutely.
soon.
So again, just to give a heads up to all the people who are joining us or are going to watch this recording later, one of the things, as a Google certified trainer or just as a maths teacher, whenever we would meet, group of teachers, especially the maths teachers, they would, always start off with, well, give us a
All
solution for maths. How do I type
all the time.
maths? I think that used to be one of our very regular, isn't that so? So they would say, okay, what
Absolutely.
can we as maths teachers do? English teachers can do this, and science teachers can do this, or social science. So EquatIO would turn out to be, one big, one would say
Answer.
the tool that we would go and say, here it is, and use it. So that's what we
I
are
would
going to talk
actually
about. And
sometimes I sometimes I even actually used to extend my sessions by like 10-15 minutes and talk about equation a little more, because I got so
right,
excited in replying to that particular question that I
yes.
used to get.
True,
So yeah.
absolutely. So, yes, it's our pleasure to have Sammy here with us. Hi, Sammy. And Sammy is here as a math teacher and also as a person who's now supporting Text Help, the company which is bringing not only Equatio but so many tools which are so great, especially for students who struggle with reading, who struggle with writing, who struggle with understanding the usual normal text that we come across, and we assume that it is all super easy and super comfortable for everyone. So, welcome, Sammy. It's really a pleasure to have you here with us. And we're really excited to know who you are. Just give us a little brief on what you do. And as a maths teacher, how did you find or get into this field of supporting teachers with text help? And how are you finding it?
Oh, well, thank you for having us. Good afternoon. It's afternoon here in the UK. I thank you for a lovely welcome. I was nodding along where you're like, oh, and then we show teachers, and then it's amazing. And yeah, this for me is I wrote a blog a couple of years ago about how I'd go to training sessions and sit there and think, oh, this is a great tool, but I teach maths. Oh, this is wonderful, but I teach maths. And then the day EquatIO came along, I was like, no, this is for me. They built this for me. This is for me, and I can put this in my lessons. So I think I come with all that love and passion from teaching maths. I was teaching maths yesterday evening online in EquatIO with my students, and one of my students last night went, I've just found the periodic table. And so it's full of everything. Everything is in there. But yeah, I now work at Text Help. And we are aiming to just get the message out there for those that need that little bit of extra help. Whatever that little bit of extra help is, we want to put the right tools in their hands to make sure we can do that.
Right. And again, it's just not only maths. I think the science teachers are also benefiting, not only just because there's a periodic table now, but there are so many things, even a chemical equations that can be typed and with least of the efforts. So that is the beauty of EquatIO, and we
The
are really
molecular
excited
bond.
to.
Yeah.
Yes, molecular bonds. Yes, absolutely. And so much more that we have yet to perhaps discover and share with others. So we are looking forward to learning from you, Sammy. If you think we are ready, then I'll put up your slides and
Amazing.
we can
Thank you.
great. So here we are, and we will go into the background and we'll be there just in case you need us. Over to you, Sammy.
Brilliant. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate that. So thank you for hosting us today. I am here from Text Help. Please do use the chat. Ask any questions as you go along. I can't promise I'll reply, but somebody will reply. I've got some of my colleagues supporting me today as well, looking at the chat. But thank you for hosting us. Very excited to be here today with you. And we're going to talk about EquatIO, and I'm just going to start off with a little bit about who we are and what we do. I loved that. I saw that come up. I could see teachers' eyes like when I told them, even through the screen. Just brilliant comments. Thank you. So yeah, my name is Sammy. If you are on Twitter, I'm a bit active on there. I am What the Trig Math. So it's lovely to meet you in this virtual space and to spend some time with you today. But do please take a note of my contact details. If you have any questions and you've not found the words or found the time to ask them today, please do reach out. I'll be more than happy to chat with you after the session. Just a quick start to start at the beginning is that if you are a Google certified trainer, Google certified innovator, Google certified coach, you do have access to all of Text Help's tools as part of that as well. And that's under that web address there. And you just fill in the form on there and you get access to our tools for teacher use. A lot of what I'm going to talk about today is for student use, because we want to put this in the hands of the students and support the students. But don't forget to take your place and get your access to the tools as well if you are a Google certified trainer innovator as well. I am a Google certified innovator. It was lovely to chat to the captains beforehand. Oh, there's Carrie-Anne. She's here. Thank you, Carrie-Anne. Carrie-Anne's in the chat. She's our wonderful international colleague at Text Help, and so she'll pick up any questions as well. And it was wonderful to chat to the ladies before we started, and they were saying that they were Google trainers, Google innovators. I am too, and I just love being with GEGs. I think there's such a powerful community building place where we can all connect and learn together. And if you're not a Google coach yet, let's get Google Coach going. It's a great one to do. I really love Google Coach as well. It's one of my proudest ones. So, who are Text Help then? Well, we have a suite of tools. And what we're trying to build as we go through these tools is that familiarity for students. So when they open the tool, that user experience is still the same for them. Or I know that this button does this for me, whether it's in maths, whether it's for their writing, whether it's for their reading, whether it's in a PDF. And we build the tools with that in mind. So in our suite of tools, then, we have Read and Write to do the reading, writing and comprehension. And I think it would be really lovely for us at Text Help to come back and do that again with you at this GEG as well. We've got WriteQ, we've got Orbit Note. I will touch on Orbit Note today because it does sit really nicely with EquatIO. We've got Fluency Tutor for practicing that reading aloud. And then that's why we're here today, to make that maths digital. Because like we sort of alluded to at the beginning, digital maths is painful. It's quite hard to digitize what is expressed better with a pencil and paper sometimes, but we know times are changing and we know the world is changing, and we want to best prepare our students for going into that world. We want to give them the opportunity to develop those digital skills, and maths isn't a subject that should ignore that either. And the key thing for us at Text Help is making things accessible. Digital maths is very often inaccessible. I am guilty of it too. I'll take a quick photo of my board work in my classroom and I'll post it on Google Classroom and I'm like, here's your worked example, guys, off you go. And that's not the most accessible way to do things. So I like to think now of how we can build resources and build things with accessibility at the heart. And if we build it from these tools, we'll put our heart and soul into it, and our students will feel that care and love and feel supported, regardless of what their needs are. So some of the key challenges that we looked at when we were looking at EquatIO is that standardization of responses. Math, ML and Latex, it's like another language to me. They're not my strongest suits and they're quite tricky to navigate. And as students progress in their maths, if they really wanted to go into engineering or those more complex maths fields, these are skills they're going to need. So how do we break that down? How do we make that accessible to them from the very beginning? And how do we support them on their journey? And we think EquatIO does a lot of that. For students who need things reading aloud, students who use Braille readers, how do they access their maths? Screen readers, PDFs, all the things that are inaccessible without putting something extra onto it. If we've got maths on the web, how do we make that accessible? How do we make it familiar to the students? How do we give them the confidence to be able to grab that question and explore and answer? So EquatIO helps you create maths, not just maths. We did briefly mention science. I'm not a science teacher, so it would be very ridiculous for me to start doing a science demo today. But we do have those features built in. And we want to make things accessible and engaging for every student. And I'll talk a lot as we go through about putting things in the students' hands, because that's what we're here for. We're here to empower our students. We're here to drive their independence, help them be the best they can be. And if we put this tool in their hands, then they have that power and hopefully that confidence to go and explore their maths. We sit across all the platforms. I understand this is the GEG, but we do sit across all the platforms. I hear a lot about other organizations that integrate with things. We do integrate, but actually we're web-based. And I think that builds another accessibility bridge for me, in that when I talk about accessibility, I also talk about, is the tool web-based? Because very often web-based wins, because regardless of the age of the device the students are working on, regardless of memory space of the device, or the platform that they're working on, if it's web-based, then every student can access it. And that's building accessibility in its heart as well. So a few bits and pieces that we have that come across, and these are the icons that appear in what we call the toolbar. And I mentioned at the beginning, we try to build that familiarity to the toolbar as we go through these. So if you are already a read and write user, or your students use read and write, hopping across to EquatIO, it really looks and feels very similar for them. We have a graph editor in there. So if you use Desmos for your graphing already, we have a Desmos graph editor in there. And what I will say as well is it is exactly as you would expect it to be, but we have accessibility built into ours. So when we draw those graphs and we show those lines of intersection for students, we can have those read aloud and we can have that narrated for students, so we can explain what's happening on the page so that everybody is included. We've mentioned Latex, we've got mobile on there as well, and that's where we're really trying to take that handwritten maths, that paper-based bookwork that we know is still sometimes the best way to represent the problem that we're trying to solve. But how do we digitize that? How do we make that and bring that into the classroom? And how do we give students the opportunity to explore? Yeah, web-based is so much more accessible. Absolutely. I agree with you completely, high school history. Web-based is part of my accessibility discussion. In my previous role, when I was working in a large maths department and we were trying to build in tools, and I sat across all the EdTech tools in all the departments where I was working, my first question was always, is it web-based? And it used to get really annoying for them. They'd be like, will you stop going on about it being web-based, Sammy? And I was like, no, because if it isn't web-based, then it's not accessible from the very beginning. You're sort of undoing what you're trying to do. So yeah, web-based for the win. We'll park it there. We've also got this icon here. Now, this icon here, this is Math Space. And this is where it really comes alive for me, but it also can become your whiteboard space. So if you are used to using digital whiteboards with your students, you can do this in math space, and this can be their place where they do it. And it's that familiarity again, that they're not having to go to another platform, remember a login or access a link. It can all happen within one tool, and that is EquatIO. So the additional needs that we support students who experience dyslexia, dyscalculia, dysgraphia, dyspraxia, autism, ADHD, visual impairment, visual stress, mobility and dexterity, and hearing impairment. We don't know, and I don't know now as I'm talking to you, if you experience any additional needs. But if we use a tool that covers all this from the very beginning, we don't have to have that awkward conversation of I can't access that, or I wish I was able to do that. We can build accessibility from the beginning and share our love for our students and bring everything together for them and build accessibility from the start. Oh, Viva, that's wonderful. We create some wonderful interactive activities, in math space. Absolutely brilliant. There were some great Pi Day ones as well that were shared from Text Help this week, and they were really nice as well. I had a good look at those. So how do we do all these things? How do we support all these things? Well, we do read aloud. So we take inaccessible maths and make it to be read aloud. We offer screen reader support. We bridge that gap in that Latex dialogue. So that complex Latex language, we bridge and we make it accessible to all students. We can put EquatIO on your web page and have your web page read aloud. And we allow you to copy and make that maths accessible, allowing you to then have that multiple means of expression. Because sometimes the biggest battle we face is putting pen to paper with our students. If our students struggle to put pen to paper, then they can't articulate their ideas because they're so focused on putting that pen to paper. What we have here with this one is that speech to text tool, so they can explain and explore their thought process. And I think that putting that power in the hands of my students is what I'm here for. I want to give them everything I can give them. So we're going to dive in. I've talked about it more than enough now, and we're going to start with this one here. So what I've got is a little worksheet here. You'll see I have handwritten some maths. Hopefully it's beautiful handwritten maths, and I've done it vertically because that's how we work as mathematicians. We work vertically when we're working things out. It's nothing more frustrating than an equals and an equals on the same line, and you're like, oh, I'm not quite sure. Anyway, I've got this handwritten maths here. And what I've done is I've done my worked example for my students. Me, the expert teacher, I want to share my knowledge with my students. And we know from the research here in the UK, and we have something called the Education Endowment Foundation, who are fab at researching everything that has the biggest impact on teaching and learning. And what they say is that if a teacher as an expert can give a worked example to a student, the student will experience a lighter cognitive load. And I think we probably know that anyway from our own experiences of teaching. And, we want to give everyone the opportunity to experience that lighter cognitive load. So here I've put that worked example in, and I've done it in pencil, and I've done it faintly, and I've done it on purpose so that I'm showing you that regardless of what we're putting in it, EquatIO will read this aloud. So I'm going to stay in Google Chrome today. If you are a Microsoft user, again, recognizing this is a GEG, but I just want to mention will be exactly the same if you're a Microsoft user as well, using it in Microsoft Word. But for my own cognitive load to stay light today, I'm going to stay in Google Chrome because I'm happier in Google Chrome than anywhere else. So EquatIO sits as a little extension up here. So I'm just going to click that, and that will open up the toolbar at the bottom. And it's this tool here that we're going to have a look at today. It's this screenshot reader is where we're going to start. So I'm going to turn on the screenshot reader, and I'm just going to grab some maths. I'm going to grab that maths there.
Equals pi 3 squared.
So not only have we had that maths read aloud, and let's emphasize that this is a photograph of handwritten maths in really faint pencil that's been put into a document. It's gone through many layers of processing. And we're still able to screen grab that, have that read aloud and make that accessible to our students. But for me as well, there's a little extra piece here for students that sometimes need that little bit of focus or that little bit of reminder. The fact it brings it out of the page so clearly really helps, again, lighten that cognitive load and give them a more enjoyable learning experience. I think as well for some of our students, especially when we're working across multiple languages, symbols in maths are universal. You know, pi is pi. We recognize pi. We recognize, you know, delta cap, all the things that we recognize in maths. But when we are working in English, sometimes here with my students who experience English is perhaps their third, fourth and fifth language, for them to be able to hear it in English helps build that bridge for them in their knowledge, in that development of their understanding of English. So I was working with a student recently who knew what sigma was in their own language, but they didn't know what sigma was in English. And we were able to screenshot read it and have it read aloud. And the student went, oh, that makes sense, because in my language it's this word and in your language it's sigma, and now I understand how those two are connected, and I wonder what would happen if. And then we started to talk about other aspects of maths and what they would be called. And that's what we're here for. We're here for giving them that opportunity to wonder about their maths. So I'm just seeing here high school history again. For a non-maths person, I find the text to speak very useful. Yeah, it is very useful just to, as a non-maths person as well. And sometimes with my colleagues, maths isn't their subject, but there might be maths elements in their subject, and it gives them that confidence that they can have it read aloud and be like, oh, I'm with it. I understand what this is asking for me now. So we've taken that maths, we've made it accessible, we've had it read aloud for the students, and we have digitized that paper. This also works on a photograph of board work. So if you've written some beautiful whiteboard work in your classroom, you can photograph that, put this in the document as the worked example for the students. Then the students can, at their own leisure, grab the maths. I'm just going to grab a bit more this time. Grab the maths, have that brought out of the page.
2 lines, line 1 equals 9 pi, line 2
have that maths read aloud, make it accessible. But then this is where we take it that bit further. It is like a magic wand. It is. We can take it that bit further because we've got these 3 dots here. And under these 3 dots, we can copy the Latex, copy the MathML, and we can edit with EquatIO. And what we can do then is we can then start to give students the opportunity to explore those questions and begin to answer those questions as well. So I'm going to just pop down here, and I've written some questions for my students, and I've been really cruel. I'm asking them about areas of circles, and I've not given them any pictures of circles. So we'll rectify that as we go through. But this one here, where the question is the radius of 2 centimeters on here. I'm going to open up this time now in the toolbar the equation editor. So we've had a look here at the screenshot reader, and we're now going to look at the equation editor. And I'm going to start to type in area because that's what we're working on here. And what happens is it offers predictions. It's written in student speak. So you want to talk about area, EquatIO is going, okay, what do you want to do? Area of a square, circle, rectangle, parallelogram. How can I help you? If this is too much of a support for your students, we can turn this off. You can customize this. So if you have more mature students, you might not want predictions on. For my students, they like it just to know that they're right. They like it to know, I'm thinking along the right lines here. So area of a circle is what we're working on. So we pop that in. But you would think that that would then be the end of it. You've got the formula, off you go work this out. But actually, this is now editable for the student, so the student can start substituting into that formula. So if we've got students who are struggling to substitute in, or students who need that little bit of extra time just to get that confidence of where their values would go, EquatIO sits really nicely for them. But the biggest thing as a maths teacher is it does this. I come past here and I've not had to do superscript. It doesn't need it. I don't have to change my text to superscript and back again. It just drops itself back down all the time. And then we've got that vertical maths. So area equals pi, 2 squared. So it's going to be equals. And I can start to type the word equals. And again, it's predicting for me. Are you wanting to talk about equals? Okay, let's pop an equal sign in. But if I went back and I put equals, it might want to talk about equivalent resistance for series resistors, and it might drop that one in instead. So it is very much written in student speak. So if I pop the equals in, and if I pop in pi, and then now I've got 4, and then if I pop in equals again, 4 pi, is it about 12.56, something like that? And then I can just insert the maths. So I'm going to insert that maths now. And that's inserted into the document. So as a student, I'm able to answer that question digitally, use predictions if I need them, and really simply drop in that vertical maths. But as well as that, perhaps black text on a white background isn't the best combination for me as a student. Perhaps I prefer a different colour. And I'm a big fan of that discrete support. So if we put this tool in the student's hand, we can give students the opportunity to change it to whatever colour works for them. And so we've got the colours built in here. So if I change this to perhaps a green, a strong green is what the student prefers, it will change it for them on there. If the student notices they've made a mistake and they think, actually, I maybe want to write 4 pi instead of pi 4, it's this edit maths button and it opens up again and they can go back in and they can change this. So if we pop in 4 pi, and we can insert that maths. So we're giving them that opportunity to not just do the work, to check the work and make any corrections as well. Let's have a look at this one here then. This time the radius is 7. So if I come back into the equation editor and just clear that off, this time then if I just start to write in 49 pi, this time I don't need any extra support. Perhaps I'm the student that I'm okay with this and I know how this works. So I'm just going to write this out and it will just pop it in to there for me. And that starts to answer the next question as well. So that's the equation editor. We're going to have a look at Latex next. Graph editor I explained before. Handwriting recognition we will come to. So if the student is on a touchscreen device or has an additional graphics tablet, it will type up their maths to give that standardization of approach of that font and typeset that we recognize with maths for them. Speech input as well, and then mobile I'm going to demonstrate for you today. We're going to go into math space with the Latex now as well. So if we just come back up to this image here, I'm just going to screenshot a bit more of the maths. I'm going to take this one here. I'm going to stop it being read aloud and I'm going to hit the 3 dots and I'm going to copy the Latex. I'm going to copy that Latex. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into math space, and everybody's already raved about how brilliant it is. So we'll get straight in there and show you math space. So we're into the math space then, and you'll notice a few more tools have opened up. So we sort of stopped about here last time, and now we've got freehand draw for that whiteboarding. Shapes will come onto, and smart shapes as well. But to start us off, I'll go into the Latex editor and I'm going to paste in that Latex that we copied. I don't speak Latex, so that to me is not what I know and I recognize. But that, oh yeah, that's great. I can insert that. That makes much more sense. So we can take that inaccessible maths, make it accessible, have it read aloud, copy that Latex and paste it into a new area. And it also then becomes editable. So we can edit that maths and we could change it, I don't know, to a 5 squared. And then we would have 25 pi underneath and replace that maths. And we can then create more questions for students. So we've seen a great question somewhere, digitized it, made it accessible, and then we can create more questions for them as well. I want to quickly look at mobile then, because this is the big wow moment for people when we show them how we digitize paper, not just on the image, but also in the ability to scan in the maths as well. So let me just bring my phone up onto the screen for you. It's just connecting. Bear with it. It's talking to itself. There it is. Let's bring that up onto the screen. What we can do is we can open up this mobile bit here. So we open up this mobile. I'm going to bring my phone back on, and I'm just going to scan in this QR code here. So I'm just going to scan this QR code. You can see it's picking up the web address. And this is what the student then sees. I'm just going to close it off the back since it's a bit distracting. So I'm going to sign in with Google, sign in with my account. And what we've got now on here is we've got EquatIO looking for the active document. So what are you currently working on that has EquatIO open? So I'm going to click on the active documents, and I'm in this math space at the minute. So it's that math space icon at the bottom, but you can see everything that I have open for this demo, it's recognizing and saying, do you want to insert your maths here? Do you want to insert your maths here? How can we help you insert your maths? So I'm the student doing my homework and I've handwritten my answer to the question. I can select the math space on my phone, and I've got three options. I've got that handwriting recognition, where it will type up my maths if I handwrite it in. I've got that speech input recognition, so it'll type up what I say. So if I said 5 pi, it would write up 5 pi. And I've got camera, so I'm going to turn on the camera now. And I'm just going to grab this work here. So take a photo of it, drag the square around it, and this is all the student has to do. Tick that box, and are we going to save it as maths or save it as an image? I'm going to save it as maths. And so it has digitized that handwritten maths. I'm going to do it again, and I'm just going to insert it as an image so we can compare and contrast. And this time I'm going to drop it in as an image, and that pops it in. I'm going to take my phone off the screen now. So we have taken what started off as this, as my handwritten notes, as my student, my bookwork, my outside the classroom work, and we've turned it into this beautiful standardized typed maths, and we have made it accessible because it will be read aloud for us.
4 lines, line 1, pi times 5 square.
So we've made it accessible, but also we've digitized that paperwork. But it doesn't stop there, because how often do we give students the opportunity to check their work? And I'm sure you've all spotted there is a deliberate mistake in here, because 5 squared is not 10. But the student can take that written work, scan it in, digitize it, make it accessible, and then they can edit it, because that edit button is still here again. So we can go edit maths, and we can change that. Instead of 5 squared, we can change that from 10 pi to 25 pi, and then all our values from there underneath, and we can adjust those values as well. So we're giving students the opportunity to not just digitize their work, developing their digital skills, bringing their outside the classroom learning into the classroom. We are then able to get them to thoroughly check their work. Would you normally let a computer check your work? No, you would double check it. Right, so let's actively promote us double checking that work. It also promotes those high standards that we aim for with our students. How often do we see poorly handwritten work and think that needs to be neater? When that's exam time, that needs to be neater. This puts this from the day one we start using it with our students, because if the computer can't scan it incorrectly, your writing's not clear enough for the examiner, is the way I say it to my students. If EquatIO can't scan your work in, your writing and your layout is not logical, and it is not acceptable for the examiner, you're going to need to improve your handwritten work. So we're driving those high standards all the way through, as well as accessibility, not forgetting that we have students who experience all different additional needs with maths. And sometimes it's just that confidence. Well, actually, if a computer tells you that it can read it, then your confidence goes up and you feel a little bit more empowered about your maths work as well. So we hit across in many different areas of how we support students. So this was the math space to go into this homework task. So I'm just going to drop this down here, and I'm just going to click this button here, and it's going to insert this math space back into that document. So as the student, I've done my work. I did it on pen and paper at home. I have scanned it in and it has gone in. You don't have to do it via math space. You can do it straight into the document as well. It's just because that's where we were. But we're giving students the opportunity to show us, how did they tackle this? How do they explain their working out? So that was just a little brief look at MathSpace. I want to go into MathSpace in a bit more detail. So they all sit under equatio.texthelp.com. And each time you open one up, it is a new blank board. A blank whiteboard is how I see it. You can see I have quite a few here, and I can filter by tags. So if I've got tags for the UK team, I can filter by all the ones that I want for that. So if I've built a series of them and they cover geometry, I can filter by that as well. Once we go into the math space then, you can see it is just that blank whiteboard. The slight difference from where we were before, we had the blue insert button to go back into the document. This time we've got the share button because we're in it as a teacher and we can share this with our students. So we can give it a title. And along this side here is you have your slide sorter view. Now this works on a mobile phone. So if a student only has access to a mobile phone, they can still participate in this. We don't need any fancy technology in the student's hands because we are web-based and accessible by design and throughout everything that we do. So this sits and works on a mobile phone for students, and they are able to work with us as well outside the classroom. But we can build our resources in here and give them the space to answer questions. I think all too often we use PDFs. I'm just going to open this one here, and we don't give them the space or the time to answer their questions, or perhaps they've got other questions they want to ask us. And so MathSpace really does that. So we've had a look at the equation editor, we've had a look at copying the latex across and covered off graphs. Just going to show you handwriting recognition very quickly. I'm going to very badly write 3x plus 4. Purposely written badly because you can see the 3 is dropping off, but it's still picking it up, still typing it up for us, and we can insert that. And again, we can change that color if we think that's a better color for us and that's how we prefer it to be. You can customize as well, and you can insert all sorts of different pieces. So if you need to know about matrices or anything like that, you can pop those in as well. Then we've got the speech input. I'm just going to clear that one off, and I'm just going to say 4 pi. Oh, let's go again. 4 pi. There we go. So we can put in that 4 pi that we were explaining. I can't emphasize enough for students sometimes just to be able to speak their maths just really helps them overcome that barrier and build that confidence. And we can get to understand their logic and where they're coming from with their working out. I often say to my students, the hardest bit for me is climbing inside your mind and thinking, how did you get to that wrong answer? Because I don't understand how you got there. But if they can speak it, then it just helps bridge that gap for them as well. Mobile we had a look at. And then this is that freehand drawing. So if you are a whiteboard user already and you're already using whiteboards with your students, EquatIO does this as well. I'm just going to change my color. Oh, that's a nice purple. We'll go with this one. And what we can do is we can start to annotate and share ideas with students. And that whiteboarding that we've become quite familiar with in this online learning environment, MathSpace does it for us. You know, if we need somewhere to put an image that we're going to annotate around, we can drag an image into MathSpace and we can annotate around that as well. I particularly like it because this sits within our domain. This is managed by our domain. And so we're not asking students to log into somewhere else as well. So MathSpace ticks that security box for me, but also it ticks that box in that it's just familiar. They just know where it is and where to go. Then we've got along here, we've got the shapes. Now we've got every kind of shape you could wish for in here. We have fractions. We drop a fraction segment in. And we can have this read aloud.
4 pi.
Oh, select the fraction, Sammy, come on.
Reddish pink fraction bar. 4 segment with bluey purple border.
So it gives us an accurate description of what's being displayed on the screen. But we can take that a little bit further as well, because we've got what we call smart shapes here. Now, if you're like me, all your fractions will appear in rectangles because that's easier to draw freehand when we're under pressure in the board. And you can customize these as to how many segments you want, how many segments you want shaded. But actually, the one that wins for me is the circle, because I'm not the best at drawing fraction circles and equally splitting them into fifths. But what's interesting in the discussions when my students see this is they're like, oh, okay, it's got 5 segments. I'm going to give it 6. Oh, hang on a minute. They got smaller. Oh, they got smaller again. They're getting smaller. Oh, that's because we're sharing equally. And we think about that concrete, pictorial and abstract that we're trying to get in maths. This helps us put in the hands of the students that visualization of what happens if. What happens if? Why does that happen? What can I do with that? And then with accessibility at its core again, we can add labels in. And what I mean by that is we can type in the label of something that will then represent what we want drawn in. So
fraction circle with 5 segments of which 3 are shaded pink.
So fraction circle with 5 segments of which 3 are shaded pink. That's how I would explain it to my students. So if you have a unique way of how you would explain it, which is slightly different to perhaps the textbooks explaining it, you can build those into the labels in MathSpace as well, particularly around fractions for my students, numerator and denominator. Oh yeah, it is powerful. Thank you for that. For numerator and denominator, my students don't know that. They know it as over, so numerator over denominator, but they know it as 1/2. Well, actually, if we come back to the equation editor, if they start typing in the word over, it knows that in over it means a fraction, so that fraction 1/2. So it's written in their speak. It's written in how they would explain it. It's written with them in mind. So I've shown you a couple of smart shapes, but I want to just show you something that I use and find really powerful with my students is giving them those manipulatives. Sometimes for counting, I think it's really important. So I'm just going to drag some coins in, and I'm going to bring in the euro coins. And each of these has the label that we talked about that will have it read aloud.
€2.
So it's making it accessible. But what we also have down here is something called infinite cloner. So I'm just going to infinitely clone the 5 cents and the 10 cents and the 20 cents. And what that means is when I give this to my students, they have an infinite supply of those coins to drag and drop. So if they're working on decimals and they're trying to work out some complex problems with decimals, they can drag and drop the physical coins that represent that decimal value and manipulate that to gain that level of understanding that maybe only a physical representation will help them grasp. Another one that I give my students as well is the tens rods. We call them tens rods. They're called base 10 blocks. And we've got them in 2D and 3D. So that's the 3D ones for you. I prefer the 2D. I'm just going to drag those in, and I don't use that one. But what I do is I give that one to my students and I infinitely clone it. I give that one to my students and I infinitely clone it. Then if I ask them to represent the number 32, and I insert that onto the page, they can then start to think about, they know that's 10, and they can start to visually see and build up that 32. And so let me just show you what this looks like from the student's point of view. So I'm just going to share the MathSpace. Now you can make a copy for each person, but if you make a copy and expect a response, it then becomes an assignment for you in MathSpace as well. But not just that, it goes into your Google Classroom as well. So it generates a unique link. Wherever you can put a web link, you can put the MathSpace. So I've seen teachers share this via SMS with students and send it out to them that way. This is your homework this week. Please make sure you do it. And it's one web link. But you can also just click and it will take it to Google Classroom. So I'm not going to insult you because I think you're all very familiar with Google Classroom. But just to show you, it just sits really nicely in Google Classroom as well. And then you have all the features of Google Classroom for marking as well. So the EquatIO sits there on the page. But we've got this link. So I'm going to copy this link and I'm just going to open up a new tab and I'm going to view it as a student now for you. So the student has my EquatIO MathSpace. And I've infinitely cloned those coins for them. So come down here, and if I move the 1 cent, you see it just moves, and the 2 cent, it just moves. But if I move the 5 cents, I have an infinite supply. So I can visually start to see what happens if. Why does that happen? What's the most efficient way to represent 55 cents? What's the least efficient way to represent 55 cents? And all the things that we want to try and get students to explore about maths. But for me, for my students, sometimes number sense and number order is a real challenge. So they can grab the tens rods and know 32 is 10, is 20, is 30, is 31, and 32. And so they can visualize, why is it 32? What's 32 about 32? What are the properties of 32? And they can start to think about, why is it 32 and what does it mean for us? But what I do with this is this goes into every subject, not just maths. So every subject has a scaffolded, what we call a scaffold support math space of these rods and manipulatives, so that if they have a little bit of maths that happens in personal, social, health, education, and perhaps they're doing money, if they have a little bit of maths that comes into science and they're starting to explore what happens when we multiply and magnitude, if we have a little bit of maths that comes into food technology, you know, let's give them the manipulatives from the very beginning, regardless of their subject, and give them that ability to explore and to think, how do I represent this? How do I best represent this? Lovely to see all the feedback. Thank you. So I'm just going to show you another smart shape as well. So also in smart shapes, I've shown you the fractions. You've also got polygons. I have a young child, and it just blew their mind that when you increase the number of vertices on a polygon, it almost becomes circular. And I was like, yes, that's the wonder. That's the wonder of maths. Why does that happen? And then we start to think, oh, what could happen if, and what would happen if? So the smart shapes extend just beyond what I'm showing you today. And then this one is just such a massive one. You've got the clock. It is a requirement over here in the UK to be able to tell the time with Roman numerals. And, you know, it's quite a challenge sometimes, but sometimes telling the time, it's really hard to build questions. It's really hard to challenge students with time difference and all those sorts of things. You can customize the clock. You know, you don't have to set it to the current time. It is editable, and you can change the time as well. So that's built into smart shapes. And I think it's often overlooked when we look at EquatIO. And then angle measure. And, you know, I'm good, but drawing an accurate 60-degree angle digitally on a whiteboard, I'm not that good. But a 65, no, a 70, and it is fully customizable. So you can really start to explore what happens when we go over that 180. What's going to happen? Oh, okay. Well, why are we measuring the angle that way around? Oh, and what would happen if we measured the angle the other way around? And what would the difference be? And you can see where the wonder comes from. If you need it in pi instead of degrees, you can change that as well. So we're covering all the bases of maths for you here. So I've talked about it being web-based by design a lot. I just want to show you a couple of cool things that it does as well. I've got this video here on YouTube.
I want to find out what number.
So this is a video recorded in 2012. I just want to show you how brilliant EquatIO can be with a video on YouTube. So you turn on the EquatIO toolbar, you get that screenshot reader, and you just grab the maths.
X plus 5 equals 17.
Think about this from a student's point of view. They're perhaps studying maths at home and they see this question. They might want to start answering it. They might have questions about it. They can just click those 3 dots and copy the LaTeX. So not only is it making it accessible for those who need it, but what about for every student? And for every student to be able to wonder about, what about this question? You would just copy the LaTeX. They can go into a math space and they can paste that LaTeX in. And they can paste that LaTeX into there. And then they can start to explore that question. So they've taken something that interested them from YouTube, and they're able to then start editing it, answering that question, working on that question. But, you know, let's not ignore how brilliant it is to make that handwritten maths that was written in 2012 and videoed fully accessible for everyone as well. And if you are using an online learning platform for your maths questions, probably doesn't have accessibility built in. So that discrete level of support for all our students to make sure they can access everything that we're giving them, we can turn on the toolbar, we can use the screenshot reader, and we can grab the question.
Find the value of 3/7 squared.
So we've made it accessible on a web-based platform. This is Maths Kitchen, where we have our maths questions that they do outside the classroom. But again, we've got those 3 options: copying that LaTeX, head into a math space, and then pasting in that LaTeX from that online learning platform. I wouldn't be able to write that in LaTeX. It's not my thing. But this This seems more familiar to me, but perhaps I'm a teacher making a resource. Well, I can now edit that maths, and what happens if I just change that and I'll make that a 5 actually, and I'll make another question for my class. If we found that sweet spot where they want to explore those questions even more, we can grab those questions, make them accessible, and then put them into other resources as well for them. So the last thing I wanted to show you is Orbit Note. So Orbit Note is one of our newest members of the Text Help family. You may have seen it before in another format, but it's got a few extra bits and pieces going on for it now. And what I wanted to show you about this is how EquatIO sits really nicely with Orbit Note, but I would encourage you to ask us to come back again, if you'll have us again, and get us to come show Orbit Note and read and write together, because they do sit nicely together as well. So I'm just going to drag a PDF into here. Now I've got a surface area PDF, very exciting, a surface area PDF that I've got. And when we open up the surface area, so this is one of our GCSE exam papers on surface area. It's asking for us here, do you want us to scan the text? So it's saying it's not found any text in this PDF. Do you want it to scan it? So we're taking an inaccessible PDF and making it accessible. And then you would click let's scan just for ease, because it's saying 5 seconds. Okay, so we'll go for it. I have already got it ready. Oh, there we go. I had already scanned it just in case it was going to take a little bit longer. And what I've done here for my students is I've taken that exam question and I have annotated it myself and given them that worked example. I appreciate it's very, very messy on here. It was live when I was doing it with them and I was using the different colours. But I've taken that PDF, I've put my worked example into that PDF for my students, and I've annotated it in Orbit Note using the freehand draw tool and changing the colours, showing them how surface area for each of the faces is going to be different. And then what I can do is I can hit this button up here and I can share my annotations with my students. And once I click that and share my annotations with my students, it does its thing, I can click that classroom button. And everything you would expect for Google Classroom now happens, in that it will share that assignment to Google Classroom for my students. And then I can set that as an assignment for them. And when my student gets the PDF, they can use all the features along here. So along here, we've got dictionaries, picture dictionaries, a screenshot reader for the text, translations. So if we want to pick a word and then we have it translated, we can have that open. We can also have a picture dictionary as well, just to ease that cognitive load for students who perhaps don't understand some of the text. And then what we've got along here as well is we've got a screen mask. If we want to make it more accessible for our students, we can do that as well. And then highlighting, freehand drawing is how I drew that bit at the beginning, was the freehand drawing. That mess there is that freehand drawing. But the students can also add text to the PDF. So we've taken a PDF, we've made it accessible, we can annotate it as a teacher, share it with our students, and then we can start to write answers to questions and insert them as text on there. And again, if black text on a white background isn't for your students, we can customize that and change that as well for them. And then this is positionable on here. You've also got, again, the ability to record voice notes in here. So if you are a voice note user, it is built in within Orbit Note, so it stays within one space for students. But I'm just doing this as a very quick demo for you. But if we turn on the EquatIO toolbar, we can go into the equation editor and we can start to work out the answers to this problem and insert the maths. And it will insert the maths into that PDF for our students. And then our students can then answer questions and hand it back in for us in using EquatIO, but in a PDF. So we take the PDF, we make it accessible, and then EquatIO sits in that PDF, and the students can complete that work in that PDF and submit back to their teacher as well, using the Google Classroom link at the top. So that was a very rapid demo. It was lovely to spend time with you. My name has been Sammy, and I'm going to stop talking now, and hopefully the ladies will come back and join me.
Wonderful, absolutely wonderful, Sammy. So much to
Amazing.
explore. Thank you.
Bless you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
of course, please note all the details of Sammy in case you ever want to revisit or clarify, get any doubts sorted. Reach out to her because I have been following Sammy on Twitter much before we connected because of text help, and I learned so much from her share that comes through the social media. So do not hesitate if you ever wonder about what you might not have understood or what you might wonder text equation or orbit node or any other tool could do. Well, Sammy is there to help you. So thank you so much, Sammy. That was a beautiful showcase of um, not only equation but as a tool, but also how students can benefit from it.
Yeah,
So tools
absolutely.
definitely are there, and as a teacher I must say that we have benefited a lot, especially when we had to digitalize everything. And we had only the PDFs to kind of refer to. As I mentioned earlier, I have a list of problems, handwritten problems, which I used to take as my notes to the class, never carried a book to the class. So I could actually scan and then using the scanner from the equation convert that into digital. So we benefited a lot, but now I can also see how the student, especially the students who need time and who need different ways of understanding maths, can use this so that they can hear it, they can process it, they can take a second look at their working. Amazing. So thank you so much.
Oh, bless you. No, thank you. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think we all were very good at adapting, and I think we need to big up the students now and say to them, look, we've got these amazing tools. Let's put them in your hands and see what brilliant things you can do.
Yes,
I'm sure they can
absolutely.
come up with much better things.
I'm always learning from them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, in fact, we think that okay, this is what MathSpace can do, or what is this? This is the possibility, from our side. But give a tool into the hands of the students, and you will find amazing things happening out of that.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
always
And
a
it's a
reality.
genuine offer as well. If you will have us back, we would love to come back and show you Orbit Note and Read and Write in detail as well. If anyone is thinking, I want to know now before we get that sorted, we did a demo for GEG UK this week. And so that's online as well if you look for GEG UK. And we did a demo of Orbit Note and Equatio there. So if you've got questions about that, that's on there as well.
Yes. In fact,
That's
Orbit Note
amazing.
is something very new for me, and I did watch the GG UK with Darren White on, just to catch up with what Orbit Note is, and that was also a fantastic showcase to explain, how to convert these worksheets, which sometime in maths, we do say that worksheets are not really that great a resource, but they are essential for student practice. We do need to
Absolutely.
give them,
One
right?
hundred
So,
percent, one hundred
yeah,
Absolutely.
percent. Sorry, Eva. But yeah, our exams here in the UK are still a PDF. Our end of school exams are a PDF exam.
yeah. So I think that there is definitely a similarity in the kind of rigor that maths has in UK schools and in Indian schools as well.
And
So we do definitely depend, and we do expect our students to write and to do maths and to show the working, not only just talk about it or to play with it, which is essential, but also to practice. So definitely, we would love to learn more about Orbit Node and also Read and Write. Thank you, Carrie, for getting this happen for us, and I'm so happy that you are willing to bring Orbit Node and Read and Write for us, because we are also looking at uh, empowering teachers so that the students who do need this extra support get the most out of these tools. So accessibility is something which we all are very, very conscious of, and we do need to find time to learn, and so that students benefit from there. So we will definitely make think about the right time which works for all of us, and we would love to have Sammy back or anyone else along with Sammy from the team here to showcase the other tools. So thank you so much. I don't see any
Thank
queries
you.
in the chat, but in case there are any people who are watching us, do let us know what you thought of the session, what are your takeaways from this, and if you have any particular question, Carrie and Sami both are here, both are experts to help us. So definitely, so we have another participant saying that it will make the learning easy for
Learning
students.
easy.
Yes, Uteji,
Yeah.
that absolutely, it will make learning fun also for students. So yes, do try this out if you have not. And in fact, today there was a group of student educators, teachers who were going to sit and attend this session, but it was a clash of timing. So I have told them that this will remain on YouTube, and they are all going to watch it because they were very curious to learn about this. So I'm quite sure that there are going to be many more educators who are going to benefit from this session. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for
Thank
Anything
having
you,
us, and
else
Sammy.
that
thanks
Thank you
you
so
everyone
want
for
much.
to?
chatting. It's been brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
So
Just a
hope
very,
to
very
see
quick
you again.
reminder for our audience. We
Yeah.
have the participation link in the chat box. So do go ahead, chat box, comment box. So do go ahead, check it out, and do grab your participation certificates from the comment box. Yeah.
Yes, and thank you for joining us, everyone. Thank you, Carrie.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Sammy, and hope to have you here back with us soon.
Very, very soon.
So goodbye, everyone. And before we wind up, happy Holi to everyone. Just a day away from Holi, the festival of colors for India, and we do hope that it brings lots of joy and good health to everyone around. So happy Holi from
Absolutely.
team of GG Delhi NCR, and happy Holi to Carrie as well. And you have a good Carrie and Sammy both, and Sammy have a great bet show, and we will be trying to track you down as you
Track
share
you
and
down.
showcase there from distance. All right. So with
Great.
that, let's wind up this session and say bye to everyone. Thank you for joining us,
Bye,
and we'll be
everyone.
bringing
Happy
you
Holi. Bye.
back. Happy Holi to everyone.